So even though I'm doing work to the studio, it was such a massive weekend in college football recruiting, we had to sit down and talk about it, which explains the change of scenery. But today, we need to turn our attention to Tallahassee and the Florida State Seminoles, as Florida State not only got a huge win over the Colorado Buffaloes and several other schools for five-star defensive back Charles Lester, but they also went out and got a flip that may be flying under the radar. A flip from the USC Trojans for four-star offensive tackle Manasse Itete, something we've got to break down today. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited with the way Mike Norvell and the Florida State Seminoles are recruiting here recently? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions do seem small, but they are massive to content creators such as myself. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And as we expected, Charles Lester is a massive win for Florida State. Now, last week and the week before, we kind of discussed whether or not Coach Prime could pique Charles Lester's interest. And the answer to that had to be yes. Look, even though it could have been a long shot, even though it probably was a long shot, we know what Coach Prime has done with the #1 defensive back in the nation, or at the very least five-star defensive backs. He has been able to pique their interest and get massive wins. So it'd be foolish to think that it couldn't have happened again, but at the end of the day, Mike Norvell and them did a full court press and got a massive win for a position of major need for Charles Lester, who is a top 20 prospect in the nation per the 24/7 Sports Composite and the #2 cornerback in the nation. So there's no understating what a big win that is for Florida State, especially being able to get that win. Now, I have no doubt they're going to continue the full court press on Charles Lester until pen hits paper, because why wouldn't you? You know other schools are going to be recruiting Lester from now until the day signing day comes around, so I have full faith that the Florida State coaching staff will do the exact same, and for good reason. But that's not the only win we need to talk about. I know that's the big win. That's one of the biggest wins of the entire month in college football recruiting. It truly is that big of a deal. But there was also another addition that could be flying under the radar that personally I think we've got to talk about, and that's Florida State flipping four-star offensive tackle Manasse Itete from USC to Florida State. Now, if you look at the 24/7 Sports Composite, Itete comes just outside the top 300 prospects in the nation, sitting just about at 331. But what's interesting to note is if you look at where 24/7 Sports themselves ranks Itete, where he's the top 150 prospect in the nation. Now, if you start asking yourself, why is there such a massive difference? It's because this is a young man that has not been around the game of football for very long. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, he's going into his second or third year of playing organized football. That's it. He actually came over to the United States to play basketball and ended up finding the gridiron, falling in love, and showing everybody he has got legitimate skills on the football field. The reason why I find that so compelling, this is a kid that is very talented, but he is very green. What I mean when I say green is you watch him play and you're like, man, that guy has got so much ability, and what's so exciting about it, his ceiling is still a long ways to go. He has a lot of growth to go in technique, fundamentals, strength, all of which will excite a college coaching staff because they get to get in a guy that they've already seen is extremely gifted, is extremely exciting in what he can do on the football field, but then they get to think about all the things they can teach him. That is why Manasse Itete is a prospect that I have been talking about for the past few months as a guy you need to circle. Something we do here on the channel is we talk about certain prospects in each of these recruiting classes, and I'll tell you, circle the name. That's a guy that I think is going to fly up the recruiting board. I think Itete is one of those guys. The fact that 24/7 Sports has him rated as high as they do relative to the composite tells me he will probably fly up the recruiting boards. And if he continues the trajectory he's been going on, where he hasn't been around the game of football long, but he is absorbing all the knowledge he can like a sponge, he's going to keep rising up that board. And I think that is a phenomenal win for Norvell and Florida State. All the attention is going to go to Charles Lester, and deservedly so. He is that gifted of a prospect. There's no denying that. But Florida State got a massive flip on the offensive line from Manasse Itete, someone who I think is a lot more gifted than a lot of people realize, and I think when it's all said and done, his ranking will reflect that. So we're going to be checking in on Itete periodically through the year, seeing how his season is going, seeing how the rankings are shifting around him, because I truly do believe this is a prospect that's going to fly up the boards. But What does this mean for Florida State's recruiting class as a whole? Well, Florida State is sitting in a phenomenal position. Florida State fans have got to be over the moon, as the Seminoles have a top 10 recruiting class in the nation with 20 prospects, and football season's right around the corner. There's two ways to look at this. You can either get around 15, 16 prospects when football season hits, that way you have a fantastic base but plenty of room left to go, or you can load up your recruiting class so that way whenever the football season gets here, you're really picking amongst a few individuals as to how you're going to finish that class. There's no right or wrong way to go about recruiting, but right now if you're Florida State, you've got to love where you sit because you're a top 10 class. You have got a fantastic base to this class, including a very talented quarterback, a 5-star cornerback, and a 5-star tight end, plus a lot of prospects that I think a lot of other colleges wish they had. You got 20 prospects, meaning whenever the football season comes, your recruiting class is pretty much well taken care of. You have got a fantastic base, and you can be very selective about who you go after next, and I think that's going to be very interesting to see. But I think the most interesting thing is what happens on the football field this year for Florida State and Mike Norvell, because if he has a repeat of last year, and if the results continue to be shown, Florida State's a team we're going to have to watch out for. I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about these two wins, and then let me know what you think about Florida State's outlook going into the season. That's it. See you.